Do you want to find a stress-free way to buy your next car? Start at CarMax and shop your way. If you want to browse with confidence, get pre-qualified online with no impact on your credit score and shop cars within your budget, from luxury cars to family rides. CarMax has options for almost every price range, including more than 25,000 cars priced under $25,000. So hey, want to get started? Just head to CarMax.com for details and get pre-qualified today. Want to drive? CarMax.
Hey listeners, this is Peter and welcome back to the History Shorts. Today's episode is brought to you by the Podcast Republic, your ultimate listening app. Discover and subscribe to thousands of podcasts from around the world. Download Podcast Republic today, available on Google Play and the Apple App Store. Today on History Shorts. In 1453, the city of Constantinople fell to the Ottoman Turks, the great capital of the Eastern Roman Empire, the city that had called itself the New Rome for 1,000 years, the seat of the Orthodox Christian Church. The last living heir of ancient Rome was now gone. For the Christian world, it was a catastrophe of almost unimaginable proportions. And for one small, cold, relatively obscure principality on the edge of Europe, it was an opportunity. Not a military opportunity, nor an ideological one. Moscow, the reasoning went, would now become what Constantinople had been up to that point, the Third Rome, the final guardian of true Christianity and the center of God's plan for the world. That idea, written down by a Russian monk around 1510, has shaped Russian identity, Russian foreign policy, and Russian imperial ambition for 500 years. And you may argue, it is still shaping them today. Our history brief covers some recent history news. A quick word from our sponsors.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
This day in history. On April 20th, 1889, Adolf Hitler was born in Austria. His rise to power would lead to one of the darkest chapters in human history. On April 20th, 1999, a shooting at Columbine High School in Colorado shocked the nation and reshaped conversations about school safety and violence. Story of the day. The first Rome was obviously the original one, the city on the Tiber River, capital of the Roman Empire and seat of the Latin Church. When Rome fell to the barbarians in about 476 AD, the eastern half of the empire survived, centered on Constantinople, the city that Constantine had built in the Middle East as his new imperial capital. Constantinople called itself the Second Rome. It was the guardian of Roman law, Roman culture, and crucially, of Orthodox Christianity. For 1,000 years, it held. Then on May 29, 1453, Ottoman forces under Sultan Mehmed II breached the walls. The last Byzantine emperor, Constantine XI, died fighting in the streets. The great cathedral of Hagia Sophia was converted into a mosque, and the Second Rome had fallen. The man who gave the Third Rome idea its most famous formulation was a Russian Orthodox monk named Philotheus of Pskov. Around 1510, Philotheus wrote a letter to Vasily III, the Grand Prince of Moscow. The letter contained a passage that would echo across the centuries. He told the prince that two Romes had fallen, but the third stood still, and the fourth there would not be. It was a compact, precise, and extraordinarily consequential piece of theological writing. What Philotheus was arguing was that Moscow had inherited the spiritual mantle of Constantinople, that the fall of the Second Rome to the infidel Ottomans had not ended God's plan for the world, but had simply transferred its center northward to Russia. Moscow was now the protector of true Christian civilization. Its ruler was not merely a prince, he was the steward of God's kingdom on earth. The timing of the prophecy intersected with a series of developments that gave it immediate political utility. Ivan III, Vasily's father, who had ruled until 1505, had married Sophia Palaeologina, a niece of the last Byzantine emperor. He had adopted the Byzantine double-headed eagle as the symbol of his state. He had then begun using the title Tsar, or a Slavic rendering of Caesar. The message was deliberate and quite unmistakable. Moscow was not simply a successor to Constantinople, it was the continuation of Rome itself. When Ivan the Terrible became the first ruler formally crowned as Tsar of all Russia in 1547, the Third Rome idea was then woven directly into the coronation ceremony. The Patriarch of Constantinople, now living under Ottoman rule, sent a letter acknowledging Ivan's imperial status and the spiritual primacy of Moscow. An idea that had begun as a monk's theological letter had now become the founding myth of an empire. The Third Rome concept did several things simultaneously, and understanding all of them is essential to understanding Russia. It gave the Russian state a divine mandate, not merely a political authority, but really a cosmic one. The Tsar was not just a ruler, he was the defender of God's true church, the guardian of the last Rome. Any challenge to his authority was therefore not merely political rebellion, but a spiritual transgression. It also gave Russia a missionary identity. The Third Rome was not passive. It had a responsibility to protect Orthodox Christians everywhere, including those living under Ottoman rule in the Balkans, in the Middle East, and in the Caucasus. Russian foreign policy for centuries used the protection of Orthodox Christians abroad as justification for expansion, intervention, and war. And it gave Russia a certain framework, a sense that its history was not merely historical, but cosmic, that it was playing a unique and irreplaceable role in God's design for humanity. A fourth Rome there would not be. Russia was the last, and its mission was therefore of ultimate importance. The Third Rome idea did not die with the Tsars, however. It survived, transformed, but recognizable through centuries of Russian history. The Soviet Union suppressed Orthodox Christianity, but replaced it with a secular mission that carried the same structural logic. Russia, as the bearer of the world's most important truth, uniquely positioned to lead humanity toward its destiny. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, the Orthodox Church reemerged, and with it, the Third Rome theology in increasingly explicit forms. Figures within the Russian Orthodox Church, most prominently Metropolitan Hilarion and the Church's ideological ally Alexander Dugin, began articulating versions of the Third Rome concept as the basis for a Russian civilized identity distinct from and opposed to the secular West. The idea that Russia represents a unique spiritual civilization, orthodox, traditional, resistant to Western liberalism, has become one of the defining themes of Russian nationalist thought in the post-Soviet era. Vladimir Putin has never explicitly invoked the Third Rome in a formal speech because he doesn't need to. The ideas that flow from it, Russia as a unique civilization with a special historical mission, Russia as the protector of traditional Christian values against a decadent West, Russia as the legitimate heir to a spiritual inheritance that transcends ordinary national interest. These are all present throughout his public statements and his justifications for Russian foreign policy. The 2022 invasion of Ukraine was preceded by a long essay in which Putin argued that Russians and Ukrainians are one people, that Ukraine is not a real nation, and that the division between them is a historical aberration to be corrected. Historians recognized the structure of that argument immediately. It was not new at all. It was the Third Rome logic all over again. The idea that Russia has a sacred responsibility to gather the Orthodox Slavic world under its protection, dressed in the language of modern geopolitics. The History Brief. Today on the History News, we're stepping into one of the most enduring and controversial debates in religious and historical scholarship, the mystery of the Shroud of Turin. For centuries, the linen cloth, which bears the faint image of a crucified man, has been believed by many to be the burial shroud of Jesus Christ. Others, however, have long argued it's a medieval forgery. Now, new DNA research is adding yet another twist to this story. According to reporting from the Smithsonian Magazine, scientists analyzing genetic material found on the shroud have uncovered a surprising mix of DNA from multiple humans, actually, plants, and even animals, spanning regions across Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. At the first glance, that might seem like a breakthrough, but in reality, it complicates things even further. Some of the genetic traces appear to come from regions as far away as India, raising the possibility that the cloth may have traveled wildly or even originated outside Europe. But other findings muddy the waters. DNA from plants that didn't arrive in Europe until 16th century suggests that much of this genetic material may be the result of centuries of handling and exposure. And that's the central problem. The Shroud of Turin has been touched, displayed, and studied by countless people over hundreds of years. As a result, separating its original history from later contamination may be nearly impossible. This isn't the first time science has weighed in, however. Back in 1988, radiocarbon dating placed the cloth's origin between 1260 and 1390, pointing strongly to a medieval creation. Yet other studies over the years have challenged those results, suggesting contamination or flawed sampling methods. So, where does this new DNA evidence leave us? Well, definitely not with answers, but with more questions. Some researchers argue that the wide range of genetic material reflects the shroud's long journey through different cultures and regions. Others say it reinforces the idea that the cloth is not a first century artifact at all, but a product of medieval world. And importantly, without a verified DNA sample from the historical Jesus, or even a confirmed burial context, there's no definite baseline for comparison. Which brings us back to the bigger picture. The Shroud of Turin sits at an intersection of faith and science, where belief, evidence, and interpretation often collide. Each new study, whether it supports authenticity or challenges it, seems to only deepen the mystery rather than resolve it. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today and helping make this little show such a mighty success. If you are enjoying this show and would like to help with its production, you can always donate a few dollars at buymeacoffee.com or become a Patreon member to enjoy these episodes ad-free. Both links can be found on our website at www.historyshortspodcast.com. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you all again tomorrow.